You're listening to a Better Mousetrap podcast, a joint production by me, Marcos Dinnerstein, and Far From TV. Before we dive into today's episode, we're proud and grateful to present this week's sponsor. C42D is a branding agency on a mission to make a difference in the world. They work with startups who are solving impossible problems, inventing the future, or improving the planet. Join them on this journey if you're serious about building your business and brand. For more info, go to c42d.com. That's the letter C, the number 42, letter D.com. Did I mention c42d.com? Go there. Okay, this is Marcos Dinnerstein, host of the Better Mousetrap podcast, and today we have with us Philip Delvecchio, program director of Venture Out, and soon to be looking to venture out to new and exciting new projects. There was a lot of newness there.
That's a good introduction. I like
Yes.
that.
So, first of all, Philip, let's hear about your background, what you have been doing before we launch into what you will be doing.
Awesome. So pre-Venture Out, I was doing quite a bit. I started out working for Microsoft. I have a tech background, and I actually spent 2 years abroad living in Taiwan. When I came back to New York, I was really looking for an opportunity to combine tech, education, and then also international relations. And I came across Venture Out, and it was a perfect fit for me. I've been in New York as a program director for Venture Out for a little over a year now. It actually will be a year and 3 months very soon. And it's really given me opportunity to learn about this tech community in New York City. I'm originally from upstate New York, and I have family in New York City, but this is the first time that I've been exposed to the tech scene here.
Okay, so what were your duties here at Venture Out? We are at Venture Out, by the way.
Yes, we're in the space. I was just telling Marcos that it would have been better to do it outside because this room is kind of stuffy. But so Venture Out, Venture Out is a platform that helps international companies from all over the world and outside of New York City enter this market. We seek to bridge the gap between the opportunity here in this market and the talent from outside of the U.S. and outside of New York City. As the program director, I ran all of the acceleration, basically the main components of the platform here at Venture Out. We run week-long programs for companies, and we also do 3-month accelerators. We're currently running one for the Czech Republic, and we're looking to do more with other regions of the world. Beyond that, I did a lot of operations work. Brian and I talked a lot about how the role really transformed into something more like a director of operations. I was managing the majority of the team, so we have 4 management members, but then we have a team of analysts who I basically vetted, hired, and trained, and then delegated throughout the whole process, which was one of my favorite parts of the role. But I was also in charge of navigating process, keeping people on track, and things kind of continued to grow from there. So it was a really organic role for me, which I enjoyed. Every time that I would get faced with a new challenge, there would be a new component of my role to take on at Venture Out. But the best part of the experience was really the opportunity I had to support the entrepreneurship community, and specifically often international entrepreneurs.
And just to clarify that, Brian, you refer to as Brian Frumberg, the founder of Venture Out.
Yes, Brian Frumberg is the master behind the mission. Venture Out was founded about 5 years ago by Brian. And yes, he is the CEO and founder of Venture Out, and Venture Out is what it is today because of him.
That's great. And now looking forward, you've gotten all this experience under your belt, the exposure to the both the New York and select parts of the international startup community, and it's gotten your appetite whet for further adventures.
Yeah, it's Venture Out has been an incredible experience for me thus far. I often think about Venture Out, not just for entrepreneurs, but for people who have worked for it as being a really strong platform for launching out and expanding things here in New York City. And Brian and I have gone back and forth actually about interns who've worked for Venture Out and other former employees, and how we should create like a promotional video or a testimonial of like all these people and who worked for Venture Out who then went on to do really awesome things. Because I think that's actually a testament to some of the great stuff that Venture Out has done, which is create a really incredible community around tech and innovation, and around accepting new people into that community. And so that's what I really learned to love. Is that New York Tech has a lot going on for it. It is the second largest ecosystem in the world, and it's the fastest growing one to date. And I've decided for myself that I want to stake a claim in New York Tech's scene, and I'm looking for opportunities to do that even more. That's sort of the reason why I'm actually stepping away from Venture Out is. And so that I can focus on a few verticals of passion of mine that relate to this New York tech scene. I realized it was probably after sort of I completed my year at Venture Out that Venture Out and also the tech community in general has just given so much to myself and to our company through mentorship, through workshops, through time spent and community events and speaking engagements, and I mean it's just such a giving community, and I now felt like I had something to give back, and so I've been seeking opportunities to do that. And that was even before I decided to leave Venture Out. I reached out to a group called CUNY Startups to mentor there. I just started very recently mentoring with Numa, and I'm looking to do other kinds of mentorship opportunities, which allows me to take what I've learned at Venture Out, which is really a crash course in entrepreneurship, and then extend that back into the community.
And Numa is an accelerator that recently opened in New York City.
Yeah, Numa's a really great group. They are doing stuff that's very similar to Venture Out. There's a little bit of a different focus there, and we, Venture Out has been working on finding new ways to collaborate with Numa, and it's fun because I actually had the opportunity to come into being involved with Numa through a new hire of their own, Maurer, and who's the PM there right now, and he's such a great guy, and so we got breakfast and started talking about the things that Numa was doing and the things that Venture Out were doing, and we'd share ideas and we'd share stories, and he was helpful to me, and I hope I was helpful to him as well. And those are the kinds of connections, relationships that I want to continue to foster and build, is ones that can be collaborative and ones that can connect similar communities together, because there are a lot of people and a lot of players in New York Tech, and everybody is doing sort of various things that inevitably overlap. There's not, I don't think there's any single person who's doing something that no one else is doing in completeness. And so really what I'm looking to do is say, okay, like, what is everyone working on? Where are those overlaps? And then how can I contribute to further connecting those overlaps? And so that's why it's been great to actually be able to be more involved with Numa, because they do a lot of similar things.
Yeah, I like them. I know them as well.
I figured that's why you asked. You were giving me the opportunity to...
Sure. No, I don't like to leave things mentioned and
then not
assume the audience.
I'll
here,
just throw these names out there.
Are.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and thanks. And hopefully I did them justice.
Sure, I think so. So, what kind of things are you doing with CUNY Tech? I know that their meetup is massive and very, very an integral part of the New York tech scene. What are you doing with them?
So there's actually a really cool. So the CUNY school system is incredible, and I'm realizing just how much that they're doing is so much bigger than even the small part that I'm aware of.
It's only 22 schools. I happen to know this because
is that right? 22?
I dealt with that system at ProQuest.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
When I worked there, which is of course very education focused.
Yeah, well, you learn something new every day. That's incredible. So there you go. I mean, 22 institutions, all coming together under that umbrella, and so they've spun out all of these really awesome initiatives. I'm familiar with one in particular called CUNY Startups, which is a sort of like an acceleration program for students who are aspiring entrepreneurs or who have businesses that they're building up, and they create this sort of mentorship program throughout the year. I got the opportunity to join on a panel because it was sort of passed on to me from someone who couldn't do it, and I felt very grateful because it was a wonderful experience. It was one of my first times actually speaking coming from a place of knowledge about this community in New York City, and I got connected with the team there, and so I helped with some mentoring for one of their hackathons, and I've been working with them ever since to find other ways to collaborate. And so that's just sort of one of the groups that I'm looking at to offer up mentorship. I definitely want to continue to support international tech, so I'm definitely, hopefully, going to be able to continue relationships with Venture Out and other international focused accelerators. There's the German accelerator, which is focusing on all German tech and innovation. There's Starta, which is focusing on Russian tech and innovation. There's Layer East that helps companies, actually mainly companies from the U.S., go to China, and many others that I'm either missing or don't know about or will know about very soon. Or Marcus, you're going to tell me right now about.
Sure. You should be looking at, of course, the Nordic Innovation House.
Yes, thank you.
Sylvie Parvienne, and you should be looking at the Le French Tech.
Yes, of course, the French
You
Tech.
should be looking at New York, the Amsterdam folks in Brooklyn.
Okay, that's one I don't know about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, I love it.
And then there's the Danish Clean Tech Hub. I met those folks yesterday. They're doing some interesting stuff. We could do a whole program about the accelerator, the international accelerator team here in New York alone,
and we should.
We should. That would be
Part
kind of
two.
fun.
Yes.
That would be kind of fun because we should be highlighting them.
Marcos, we should create like a video
to the wider audience.
We should go to all of these accelerators, and then we should like learn about what they're doing and create this like really cool like international tech New York City video.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
and so many of them are now
so cool.
using that term soft landing.
Soft landing, yeah.
Which, listeners, if you're not aware of that term, it basically means a hospitable place for your company, your international company, to go to in New York that makes integrating into both the New York and the broader U.S. market easier.
Yeah, and that's what's great about what they're doing is there is such a need there. Because you have these companies that are doing really well in parts of Europe and other parts of the world, or they've captured the market in their country and they're ready to expand. And the reality is that the U.S. market, while it is one of the largest markets in the world, it's also it operates so differently. And this is probably the same for every country, of course. But there's something to be said about the way that the U.S. operates, and then also about the market size, where there's a lot of people trying to come here with little knowledge about how to navigate that, and that's why Venture Out exists. That's why these other accelerators exist, because they're basically trying to provide a safe landing for these companies, or soft landing for these companies to build their business here in the U.S. Because oftentimes these companies are not your typical go through an accelerator company. These are companies that are past the need for that early stage funding and like MVP building. Like they need very strong mentorship in branding and in messaging and in pitch coaching. They need to figure out a way to transform their sales process to one that suits this market. And that's stuff that you don't typically learn at your sort of regular style 3-month accelerator, where it's focused a lot more on building out a product and finding an MVP and creating market fit.
Right. It's a different focus.
Yeah.
An example of that would be the Nordics. In terms of presentational style, what we do in the U.S. would be perceived, again, generalizing, by way of marketing and promotion, would be seen as bragging and egotistical.
Yeah.
In that more modest, self-effacing environment in many of the Nordic companies. And they have to learn that they can raise it up a level, and that's appropriate in the U.S., but maybe not so much in their home countries.
Well, it makes me think of one of the alumni of our program mentioned the sort of culture of sending multiple emails before getting a response. He said that where he's from, you send one email, and if you don't get a response, they're not interested. Okay, nothing to it. You don't do any more. If you were to send 3 emails or 5 emails, they would think that you have a problem, and they would come up to you if they saw you and said, "Hey, man, what is wrong with you? Why are you sending me all these emails?" It would look very bad for you. And now he's learning it in the U.S. It sometimes takes 7 to 10 emails to get a response, and the response at the end of 10 emails is positive and, "Oh, thanks for following up," as opposed to like, "What are you doing? You're crazy." And he's like, that's the nature of sort of like sales, oftentimes, especially like email marketing, is persistence. One, because we've created a culture of people hating to read their email, and so you can't get a hold of someone until you've sent the 8th email. But also because people are busy, and so sometimes someone sees an email and they go, "I want to respond," but they it gets buried.
Yep, there you
and
go.
And so actually bringing it back to the top is something that people can find a way to appreciate. Although I will say probably not everybody feels that way.
Have you seen that new feature in Gmail where you can snooze?
Oh, I snooze all day, every day. But I am inbox 0. I'm very proud of that. It's not easy.
I am not worthy. This is Marcos bowing.
You shouldn't be proud of me, honestly, because it just means that I spend too much time on my email. But it's something that it's something I have to do for myself. Otherwise, I would lose ability to stay organized.
Yeah. So just tell me, moving right along. Tell me about some of the other stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah. Oh, so definitely. So one thing I actually mentioned Layer East for a reason, because some of the work that they're doing is very much aligned with the things that I'm hoping to accomplish as I sort of move forward, throughout my journey here in New York City. When I first came to Venture Out, I actually pitched to them bringing China innovation into collaboration with Venture Out. They had actually identified China as being one of the markets that they did not have a strong connection with, and it was one that they were obviously open to, but for a bunch of obvious reasons, it's not easy. One that is very simple is that China's market is actually very large, and so oftentimes companies say, "Why do I need to leave China when there's so much opportunity there?"
You mean Chinese native companies?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Like why go to another market when there's like plenty to go around in China? Now, obviously, that's not the sentiment of every single company there, and any real serious company who is interested in becoming one of the top tech companies in the world has to globalize, and that's recognized by all
Europe
companies.
and the U.S., of course.
Yeah, exactly. And so I actually I said, "Hey, I'm going to come in. I have a background in Chinese. I speak Chinese, and
How did that come to pass?
I just like kind
the
of
other day
throw
you
that
just
out there.
threw that
well,
out
so my
there.
Chinese is not that good, which is why I say it so nonchalantly. Is like, "Oh, please don't like test me." No, but I studied Chinese when I was in college, which is where it started, and it really was. I picked it because I found the language to be beautiful. I was interested in the culture because it is a very distinctly different culture from the U.S. and I recognize that. And then when I said I wanted to learn Chinese in college, the college advisor said, "You can't do Chinese and comp sci. The two of those things together will be too difficult." And I said, "Okay, now I'm definitely going to learn Chinese on top of comp sci." And it was hard. But then I took a trip to study Chinese during my second semester in college, and that's when it solidified for me. The opportunity to engage in another culture through the language is, in my opinion, the only true way to do it.
Immersion.
And it's said so many times, but that's because it's true. Immersion is the best way, and it really created a strong affinity for China for myself, a passion for it, a passion for that culture and the history. And I was committed to continue to find ways to go back, find ways to be more involved as time went on.
So where did you go, and what was it like?
Yeah, so I spent my very first time. I spent 2 months in China, in Beijing, studying Chinese. That was the first time, and I remember, the first time getting there, actually getting into the taxi and having no idea how to tell this person where to go or how to get there, even though I had been studying Chinese for over a year by then. But after doing the program and being fully immersed, I walked away feeling very comfortable with it. Beijing's culture and Beijing's atmosphere is very different from even the rest of China. It's a massive city with a lot going on. It's a very busy place. It's a very lively place. It has like definitely that New York buzz to it. Although imagine if you took New York and then you filled it with like even more people, then it would be more like
all
Beijing.
of them Chinese.
Yeah, and all of them Chinese. Yes, yeah, that's true. It's definitely very much Chinese. And I went to Xiamen for a second time, actually studying Chinese again. But my longest period of time in that area was when I was in Taiwan for 2 years. I did a Fulbright teaching English, and then the Fulbright organization brought me back on to help them run programs and different projects there for another year. And man, I fell in love with Taiwan. It is an incredible place. Moving further forward, so
Taiwan is fascinating.
Taiwan is incredible. It really is an amazing place, and I hope to continue to do stuff with Taiwan as well. But I came home. I came home because one, I knew that New York City's market is just at the end of the day much larger, and also because my family's here, and I came home to take care of my dad, and I came home to be closer to my family. With full knowledge that I would end up back on that side of the world, at least to visit. So now I'm here in New York, and I'm looking at the work that can be done between China and the U.S., and I'm looking at two of the largest tech ecosystems in the world. And you go to the other parts of the world, and they're still not, they still don't recognize New York as being a major tech hub. I mean, some people do. They being a multitude of different people from outside the U.S. So I've spoken with some Russians who when I said New York Tech, they didn't even know that New York had a tech scene. I spoke with various places in Europe, various Europeans who didn't know. And it's just because Silicon Valley did such a good job branding itself that honestly, it's just even though we're number two. It's like as if it's hard for people even to recognize it.
It's so painfully obvious to us here in the
New York.
ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obvious to New Yorkers that New York's number two. But
know that we're a major tech.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and and that goes back to New York Tech being such a cool place. Is that being that we are number two? I think that it makes New Yorkers much more willing to give into this community because New Yorkers like to be number one. We like to be the best at everything that we can be.
And who doesn't?
It's true. But it just feels more electrifying here. I don't know.
No, it's very vibrant.
Yeah.
It's different. One of the major I can go into two major differences. First of all, the New York ecosystem is a hyphen tech ecosystem, which means that we're based on existing strong legacy businesses that are now scaling through technology, fintech, finance tech, real estate tech, fashion tech, ed tech, education tech, AR and VR, which are not legacy businesses,
but the new media, right? New finding media, new ways to grab eyeballs.
Right, all of those things, and that makes it the tone and the way that people approach businesses and evaluate businesses much different than it is in Silicon Valley. As well, a major difference that I think is not given enough weight is we're not a car culture. The fact that we have to physically move around the city and like to in public transportation, on foot, bicycles, makes our relationship with one another in the tech community much different than I'm getting in a car, playing my music, arriving at somewhere else, and being only with those people. The chance of serendipity, of chance encounters, is drastically reduced in a car culture. And you walk around in Midtown, you walk around in the Flatiron District, the so-called Silicon Alley, that term that I really dislike,
Yeah.
and you do meet people. You do bump into people from other parts of the tech community, and it changes your relation to that community.
Yeah. I like the way you put that because I've always heard one of the things that makes New York tech so great is the proximity. You're just in close proximity to a lot of people, right? The VCs, the tech entrepreneurs, the corporations, the banks, the clients. But framing it from that angle of being a car culture versus not a car culture is just an interesting way to put it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Which actually makes me think of another thing about the sort of way that I'm looking to give back to the tech community. One thing that I'm recognizing about New York tech is that it's very open, it's very progressive, but there's obviously more that can be done, and so I'm hoping that the ways that I can give back into the tech community have social impact implications that are focused on providing and affording more access to underrepresented communities, underserved communities. One of the things I've been working or kind of in conversation with the community startups groups is to find ways to take all of the really great things that are going on in Manhattan and sort of start to spread that out into other boroughs. So there are other communities. I mean, there's a lot going on in Brooklyn, obviously, but extending even further out. So
Staten Island, they've got their Staten Island College Accelerator.
Yeah. So it's all there, and I want to find a way to connect them and connect the sort of various platforms in these different boroughs. And I also am a part of a team of people creating a platform to give more opportunity to women for speaking engagements, both keynotes, panels, and otherwise. It's called Women Present. Mm-hmm. They're actually launching either at the end of this month or early next month. And the whole thing will be a platform where event managers can go and find really excellent women speakers for their events. Women speakers can put themselves out on that platform for more engagement, with the overarching goal to empower women, bridge the gender gap, and then create an environment where they're entering into even better positions of more leadership and being seen as
being seen is the key.
Yes,
especially as people coming up or thinking about being part of a profession can see people like themselves modeling it. If you can't see someone like yourself, it's hard to imagine putting yourself in that position.
Yeah, being seen, definitely, and that's some stuff that I'm really excited about. And there's a really incredible community of people doing other things as well. So I'm excited to be able to have more of an opportunity to explore that.
Do you know if this group is in any way connected or overlapping with Women 2.0?
They are not. We're actually in the process. So the original founding team is mostly in London. One of them is originally from New York but lives in London now. And then there's one of the other founding members. There is one in New York City. But the reach, I think, is something that we're starting to just now work on. Because I came to them with the idea, and then learned that they were already doing it, and said, "Well, I'll just join your team." And I realized that there's a lot that they didn't know about the tech community in New York City. They actually all come mainly from ad tech backgrounds.
So they too didn't know there was a tech scene in New York City?
I hope that they did. One of them works for Google, so like the Google New York. So I hope so. I hope that they at least recognize it. But they wanted to start with advertising and tech actually as the two verticals as point of entry, because that's sort of where they sort of have a realm of expertise. So Women 2.0 is definitely someone we'll be looking to partner with, along with Parity Partners, which is a really great organization that's already doing a lot to help empower women.
Plum Ventures.
I know the
Sure. Frances Walton?
Yes, that's who it is. Frances, she's
ding,
coming.
Ding, ding.
Yeah, I was like, and she's been to a couple of our events, and we've talked about getting their group more involved. And then there's also
SAPIO.
SAPIO, absolutely. I love that team so much.
Yeah, there's
And
some good people there.
I'm gonna be in that space on Friday for Accelerator Awesome.
You and I both.
And then what's the all women co-working space?
The Wing?
The Wing. There's so many really cool organizations. I love it. It's like name games right now. Who knows more about New York tech? I've only had a year, Marcos, a year to figure this out.
I'll see your wing and raise you.
Please do. Well, this is what's so amazing. You know, as I'm learning just in this one engagement with you, Marcos, I'm learning so much, and I hope to continue to do that because I only know so much, and there's just so much more to learn and to grow and contribute. And so finally, I guess, because we've talked about all the other things, I think, you know, which is what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is the China collaboration. As I said, I love the language, I love the culture, and I really believe in New York tech. I believe that it's something special. It's not just another big hub or ecosystem for people to seek talent, capital, clients, you name it. That there's something special here, and that I want to be a part of that. And I'm going to seek very specific ways to connect New York tech with China. And I'm
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks here. A year from now, 2 years from now, the veteran here looks back and he says, look at what I've done with the New York to China connection. What would you ideally like to be able to point to and say you've accomplished?
Well, first of all, thank you for the credit of saying that it would happen in a year or two, as opposed to 5 to 10 years, because that's usually the number that people give. But in New York, everything happens faster.
Things accelerate.
Acceleration. That's what it is. This is all just about acceleration at the end of the day.
Compressed time frames.
So that's a great question. My goal is for for New York and for China, for there to be a very smooth and cohesive connection between the tech scenes in New York and China, where if someone said, "Hey, I feel I'm ready. I want to explore my business opportunity in China," whether that be expanding to that location, whether that be looking for job opportunities, whether that be looking for just a cultural connection, that they would not have to jump through a million hoops to do so, that they wouldn't have to ask around until they finally got to the right person, that they would have a platform or a community, even more importantly, that they would know that I can go to this community and it would be a seamless bridge between the two incredible markets. And obviously, I talk about New York as a city and China as a massive country, and so I see there being a lot of tendrils and a lot of hubs going between the two. My role in that is yet to be seen. I hope that I can be integral in helping make that happen.
I suspect you will.
I hope so.
And with that, we will once again thank Philip Delvecchio, right now of Venture Out New York, and soon to be off to major other ventures. Thank you so much for spending time with us. This is Marcos Dinnerstein at A Better Mousetrap Podcast. Thanks for listening.